Welcome everybody to my video slide presentation on the four horns of Zechariah. When we look at these four horns in Zechariah, they come and they scatter Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And if we look today what's going on in the Middle East, we see what's come up here lately is this Middle East quartet. And it includes the UN, EU, Russia, and the USA. I think this quartet is these four horns of Zechariah chapter 1 and 2. And we read it, then lifted up my eyes, and I saw, and behold, four horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these? And he answered me, these are the horns that have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Now we know from the present Israeli-Palestinian conflict that things are getting really heated up there, and right now there needs to be some kind of stability. Well, this group is got an office in Jerusalem, and they're ready, and they've been pushing for this peace deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis. The problem with it is it's got a two-state solution, and neither one of either Israel or the Palestinians really want a two-state setup. Now, the United Nations is optimistic about this Mideast quartet because they haven't really been able to settle the conflict since 1948, when it was turned over to them from the British, that this conflict between Palestine and Israel. Zechariah says, then the Lord showed me four craftsmen. And I said, what are these coming to do? And he said, these are the horns that have scattered Judah, so that no man lifts up his head. But these craftsmen have come to terrify them, to throw down the horns of the nations who have lifted up their horns against the land of Judah in order to scatter it. The key here is this group these four horns will scatter Judah, and it's connected to the land of Judah. So we believe this is not talking about 70 AD, but the present Israel right now. Now this is the setup right now with the Palestinians controlling Gaza and the West Bank, and Israel controlling the rest of it. Now Jordan is kind of watching over the West Bank, and Egypt supplies Gaza. So the two-nation or two-state solution wants to set it up kind of like this. The Mideast quartet discusses reviving meaningful Israel-Palestinian peace talks. See, both Israel and the Palestinians need to refrain from unilateral actions that make a two-state solution, there it is, more difficult to achieve. The U.S., Russia, EU, and the UN say in a joint statement, and this took place in March 24th, 2021. Here's Abbas and Netanyahu, and neither of them wants to really give in on this, but with these four groups really putting the pressure on them, I think, and with what's happening right now in the Middle East, we know Iran is behind this. They're supplying things to Hamas, and so they're using the Hamas to to attack Israel. And so pressure is on Israel to make some kind of a deal. Now I brought this talking about these four blood moons that are appearing, and there's lots of prophetic ideas, usually referencing Israel, because there's four in 2015 and 2014 and 2015, and all these four eclipses and blood moons were on Israeli feasts, festival days. But interestingly enough, these ones that are happening in 21, 22 are not. So let's look at this. I was looking at a thing on it's called these blood moons and this light scattering, and it's called Rayleigh scattering. And pretty interesting because there's a physicist named Rayleigh, and he did a lot of work with light refracting and the redshift, and especially at sunset, they call this scattering, this Rayleigh scattering, where the light spreads out all over the sky. And this happens in the case of the blood moon as well. So I thought that was interesting, because these 4 blood moons in 2120, neither of them are on Jewish feasts, like the ones in 2014. And one is not quite 100%, only 97% total eclipse. But, the thing is, these blood moons don't refer to Israel then, because they're not on the Jewish feasts. But maybe, just maybe, they refer to these 4 horns, Zechariah 1:19, that will scatter, Rayleigh scattering, that will scatter Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. I don't know. This could be the Middle East quartet. They are pushing a 2-state solution, and they're planning to divide up the land. So this same time is predicted in Joel 3:1 and 2. He says, "For behold, in those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Then I'll enter into judgment with them there on behalf of my people and my inheritance Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land." This is exactly what Zechariah says. These 4 horns will scatter Judah and Israel and Jerusalem, and so that no man lifts up its head. And this is what I believe this quartet is about to do. And they're going to work with this covenant, this peace treaty, and so we're right at this stage now. And the result will be that God, after they've done that, this Valley of Jehoshaphat, that's talking about Armageddon. So after they do this and scatter Israel among the nations, then God will bring them down to this valley of Jehoshaphat. And we know what happens there. We see it in Luke 21:24. Jesus predicts the same thing. He says, that's the Jews, they will fall by the sword and be taken away prisoners to all nations. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The key here is they'll be taken prisoners. And this didn't happen in 70 AD. They were scattered, but they were not taken prisoners. And this is yet to come. So we're looking at this, what I believe this Middle East quartet is going to be involved in, and also the Antichrist in this peace deal, that we know about from Daniel 9:27. In Revelation 11:1 and 2, it talks about this same trampling of underfoot. And then I was given a measuring rod like a staff, and I was told, "Rise and measure the temple and the altar and those who worship, but do not measure the court outside the temple. Leave it out, for I've given it over to the nations, or the Gentiles, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months." So this is the same thing. It's talking about this final 3.5 years. When Israel is scattered, this is what Zechariah is talking about, the 4 horns that scatter them so that nobody lifts up their head. And it's after that then God, he finally has compassion for Israel, and in this 3.5 years, he begins to, then he's going to restore. And so that's what we're looking at. And that's the Antichrist, will confirm the covenant with the many for 1/7. In the middle of the 7, he'll put an end to sacrifice and offering. And at the temple, he'll set up the abomination. So we know about that from Matthew 24:15. that Antichrist sets up the abomination of desolation in the holy place, and then everything happens. Then Antichrist's army takes out Israel, and they're scattered. They're led away prisoner into all nations, just like it says in Luke. And this is yet to come. And I believe these four groups, the UN, the EU, Russia, and the United States, are these four horns. Now, soon they're going to have they're trying to bring in a peace treaty now. How soon? Well, we should expect it pretty soon, because think of this now. If they wait for the U.S. elections in 2024, Donald Trump could get in. Well, the Palestinians know if he gets in, there's no hope for them. So they're going to push, and whoever else, Iran, they're all going to push right now, and this quartet, for a peace deal sometime before 2024. So I think anywhere between 21 and 23, this could happen. And Abbas, out of the four, the four quartet members, he will only allow the U.S. to negotiate in the peace treaty. So, but the U.S. could be in there. Fortunately, the U.S. here is, under Biden, is really not a good support for Israel. They have too many pro-Palestinians, and they've supported Iran in bringing them back into this nuclear deal. And Trump was actually doing a pretty good job getting deals with Bahrain and other Sudan and other Muslim countries with Israel, and so things were going pretty good. So now, though, all of a sudden Trump's out, Biden's in, and look what's happening. Iran is being emboldened, and there's some help, and so is Hamas, and so all this is turned around. Now this is where we are just now. New 8-member Israeli coalition just forming on June the 10th, and so this is very significant to this these four horns, because they need an Israeli government. This Naftali Bennett, this guy here, this guy, he's in, and he's an Orthodox Jew, and so he's also was an American citizen, and so he's in, and so this could be the guy they're going to try to work through. Netanyahu's out. He was kind of pretty unable to move him, but this guy, not so. So this could be the next step. So we're not far off this agreement. So I just want to leave it with that, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and that you will check out some other stuff, my videos, and subscribe to my channel. So keep looking up. God bless.